Hi, I'm Pumpkin and welcome to my very first YouTube video. I'm a little bit nervous but excited to be making this. In this video, I'm going to tell you guys all about how I made this wig for my Sailor Sylveon cosplay that I debuted at KatsuCon. So I'm not going to call this video a tutorial per se because this wig's not perfect. There's definitely some things I kind of messed up on. Oops. But this is just going to be a showcase of how I made it. And I will also share with you what went right and what kind of went wrong, what lessons I sort of learned along the way. So yeah, let's get into it. Firstly, this wig idea was not my own. I actually got the idea from this art that I found on Twitter. When I saw this art, I was immediately gooped and gagged. I wanted this wig on my head right now. I love everything about it. It's sort of a mashup of Chibi Moon's wig and Sailor Moon's wig with Sylveon's colors. And when I saw it, I was like, I have to make that. So just looking at the wig, I already had a plan in mind because one, I've done ombre dyeing before, and two, I have made a Sailor Moon wig before. So I kind of had a good idea of how I wanted to do this. First, I was going to need a white wig because even the lightest pink, if you try to dye it blue at the bottom, it's going to go pretty purple. So I just needed a base white wig. I did actually really want pigtails longer than these. I wanted some as outrageous and ridiculous as the ones in that drawing. And so I originally went to Arta because Arta has some XL long wefts that would be the perfect length for the pigtails. But unfortunately, at the time, Arta was totally backordered on all of their white wigs. So I went to my second favorite runner-up, which is Epic Cosplay Wigs. And they had long wefts, but they didn't have any extra long ones. But I actually think that's kind of fine because this length of pigtail is already kind of high maintenance. So maybe that was in my own best interest. I ordered one Gaia wig in white and then I ordered two long wefts in white. You only need one weft to split in half to make two pigtails, but I was a little bit nervous about this ombre dyeing thing, and so I figured I would get a backup just in case the first one went terribly wrong. I decided to do the blue on the ends first because that would be easier to work with. I got synthetic blue dye, put it in my bath, and I tested it to make sure it was going to be the shade of blue that I wanted before putting the hair in. Now the trick to ombre dyeing something is to keep it moving continuously and not let it sit in one place. I kept bobbing it a little bit up and down in the water and just moving it slowly up and up out of the water so that the bottom was in the bath longer than the top was. But I didn't get any lines because the water was never in one spot long enough to dye like a straight line there. I was a little bit nervous that my blue was looking kind of dark at first, but once I rinsed it out with first hot water and then cold water and let it dry, it ended up being the perfect shade of pastel blue. Then it was time for the pink part, and here's where things got a little bit weird. So for the pink portion, I used the pink synthetic dye, but I know from experience that this tends to lean sort of on the purpley pink side, so I also added just a little bit of red to help balance it out. I tested it on a piece of fabric, but it actually looked pretty light on the fabric, and once I started dyeing the wefts pink, I kind of panicked a little bit because it looked quite a bit darker than I was originally going for. I just kind of went with it and hoped that once I rinsed it out, it would be the perfect shade. And so I did the same thing that I did with the blue. I just kept it continuously moving. I overlapped it with the blue just slightly, not enough. I didn't want too much of a purple right here in the middle. I hung hung that up to dry, and I will be honest with you, I was not super pleased with this shade of pink. I wanted really pastel, and it was going a little bit warm. It was a little bubblegummy. But I decided to just keep working with it, and now it was time to dye the base wig. I have no idea what happened here. It's the exact same dye bath, but when I put the base wig into that dye bath, it would not take the color. It turned out such a light pastel pink, and it got so frizzy. I don't know if the temperature changed or if I maybe hadn't mixed it well enough and the weft soaked up most of the color and then there wasn't enough left for the base, which I have ombre dyed a lot of fabric and I've never had that issue before, so I'm really not sure how that happened. I waited until everything dried and then I double checked it, and yep, for sure, the weft was a much darker pink than the base wig. So I was gonna have to dye the base wig again, which is kind of a shame because the base wig was actually more of the pink that I had originally wanted in the first place. And so I was gonna have to make it darker. Now you might be asking, Pumpkin, you bought another weft. Why not just re-dye that one blue and try to go for another pastel pink to match? The problem is that I was on a really tight budget with this cosplay. I'm kind of, how you would say, unemployed. And I was actually using what dye I had left over from previous projects. So I was already kind of in trouble needing to buy more pink dye. I didn't want to have to buy more blue dye on top of that because this synthetic dye, it's like $7 or $8 a bottle, and I kind of don't have that money. So I really just kind of wanted to roll with what I had. So I went to the store, I got more pink synthetic dye, and I tried to color match the base wig as close as possible, and to my luck, it turned out pretty perfect. The base wig and the wefts ended up being almost the exact same shade of pink. Now it's time for styling. For the pigtails, I actually have like a really easy way of doing these. I like my wigs to be as easy to transport to and from conventions as possible. If I can get the whole wig shoved into a Ziploc bag and have it thrown in my suitcase for the convention, that's exactly what I want. So for the pigtails, I took that weft, cut it in half, and sewed it all up together. And then I just sewed those onto some pink elastics. And I made sure to grab pink elastics just in case they show through a little bit. You don't want like black to be kind of popping out at the edge of your wig there. Once the elastics were on, I hung up my pigtails and started crimping them to give them body and volume. My favorite way to crimp wigs is to actually go in diagonal patterns and crisscross them. I found that doing this really helps make sure that you don't get any like harsh crimp lines and your wig doesn't end up looking like a crinkle cut fry. Once all of the crimping was cool, I then brushed it out and you can see it looks nice and fluffy and voluminous. I gave the bottom of the pigtails some curls, and my favorite method to curl wigs is to just use like one of those heatless sponge rod things and to use a flat iron to heat it up. And I made sure to wear my little silicone thimbles to protect my fingers against the heat because burning your fingers with a flat iron is not fun. I make sure to do all of the curls going in the same direction, and I try to keep them about the same length and size so that I can then brush them out into one big curl, which usually needs a little bit more heat to just kind of like help it really get its shape all together. Now, the base wig, I kind of messed up a little bit because I'm not really sure where my thought process went for this. The base wig just looked so poofy. I couldn't get it smoothed down. So for some reason, I thought it would be a good idea to do some of the hair first, put it up into its little pigtails, glue them together, and then tried to add more hair. That was a terrible idea. It was so hard to add the other hair back once I had already cut and glued that first pigtail because I couldn't get a grip on them. I eventually was able to get it all brushed up and put back into pigtails so that I could glue it all together, but I was left with the tiniest, messiest little stubs, which is kind of a problem because these stubs are what keeps these little buns on. So I don't recommend doing that. If you can, I would definitely recommend just doing all of the pigtail at once and gluing it all together. Now onto these little buns. I found some egg-shaped styrofoam balls at the craft store that were pretty much the perfect size. I felt really lucky to have found these. So I cut the bottoms of the styrofoam eggs flat and then I hollowed out the middle where the stubs were gonna go. The hair that I cut off of the base wig to make my little stubs, I saved them and I turned them into wefts to glue onto the bun. And I just do that by tying off little sections, cutting those off, and then using tacky glue to glue them flat. Then I took those little wefts that I had made from the base wig and I used hot glue to glue those onto my little styrofoam eggs. Again, making sure to use my silicone thimbles. I cannot tell you guys how much these things have saved my life. My fingers would be covered in little burns if it weren't for these things. I wrapped the wefts around in kind of that diagonal pattern. The tip of the egg shape was kind of difficult. I just kept using glue and doing it in tiny little pieces until I could get the hair looking as okay as I could get it. It's not my favorite when you look at them up close. They do look a little bit weird at the top, but I don't really think it's that noticeable. For the bangs, I just gave them a trim and I curled them again with my flat iron. I'm a big fan of curling wigs with flat irons. I think it's so much easier than trying to use the hair dryer and curling them by hand or doing the roller and steam method. And for these little sideburn curls, I found a pencil that was like the perfect size for them and did the same thing that I did with those foam rollers. I just wrapped it around and used the flat iron to curl those. Now for the little gems that go on the buns. I had some resin left over from a previous project. I added my opaque resin dye to my resin mixture, mixed it up, and poured it into my molds. Now once my resin was cured, I needed to make the little base of the gem. I cut it out of craft foam, just using a pill bottle I had on hand as my stencil. I used a heat gun to get them flat and give them more structure, and then I used wood glue as my primer because wood glue dries rock hard. Then I hit it with some gold spray paint and glued the resin directly on, which was a mistake because it's from far away, you really can't see, but one, it's gone kind of green because the gold is showing through, and two, you can see my glue underneath, which is not a great look up close. I didn't realize that resin gems need something on the back. I learned that lesson with the gems that I made after. You can see this one on my choker also doesn't have anything on the back, and that's why it is barely pink, whereas these ones are bright pink. So if you're going to make your own resin gems, put a sticker, some vinyl, something on the back so that it is shiny, bright blue, and it doesn't turn this kind of dull greenish color. Once my gems were done, I just glued those directly onto the buns, and with that, my wig was done, and I was ready to take it to Katsucon. Now the wig was really easy to transport. I could just shove everything into some plastic bags. I took it to Katsucon and I was very surprised. I wore it around all day for 2 days, even outside with the wind blowing, and the pigtails really didn't get tangled. I had a little bit of tangling at the ends. The curls kind of came apart a little bit from the wind, but all I had to do was smooth it down with my fingers and add a little bit more hairspray and they looked fine. The wig is really easy to put on. I just have to slide the base on. It's pretty snug on my head. I don't need any bobby pins to hold it down. I tie the ponytails on like you would any other hair tie that has like a bow or something on it around my little stubs, and then I just kind of like shove the buns down on top of it, and those stubs really keep it in place. It's not the most secure. I've definitely seen better ways to do this. I've seen other cosplayers do like kind of a PVC pipe thing, or they do magnets, which I might do in the future, but I was kind of on like a con crunch, and so I was just doing something that I've already done before and I like knew was gonna work. But yeah, I am really happy with how this wig turned out. I got really good feedback from people at KatsuCon. I had so many people giving me compliments and telling me it was so pretty and asking me if I had done it myself, which of course I got to very excitedly be like, yeah, I made it myself. Is the wig perfectly exactly what I was going for? No. But I mean, what cosplays really are. I'm really proud of myself for making this. I think it's so cute. I feel really cute when I wear it. And I'm excited to keep learning more wig styling things, and I'll keep sharing them with you guys. I think my biggest takeaway is that ombre dip dyeing your own wig is really not that hard. More people should try it. If you want to ombre dye a wig, it is not that hard. You just gotta do this. It's so easy. It's really easy. Also, a big shout out to my coffee supporters who paid for this wig. It means a lot to me. I am cosplaying on a budget, and every ounce of support means so much to me, so thank you guys. And that is it for this video. Thank you so much for watching. I really hope that you guys enjoyed it. If you did, please leave me a like, please leave me a comment, subscribe, and maybe share this with other people who might be interested in seeing it. And I will see you all in the next video. Bye!